Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Citizens Review. The reason why I'm standing is because I'm going to show you some clips in the back here to make you understand the theme of the show today. But also last week, I forgot my ointment, as I call it. My grandma used to call it, but it's Pompeian extra virgin olive oil. And the reason I have this is because about a year and a half ago, a lady who thought that Citizens Review was divine work asked me if she could anoint me, and she gave me this bottle of oil that they prayed over. And so I keep it because she may be onto something. And so I keep it because I understand that Citizens Review is not the friend of every person in this country, particularly those of power. I also understand that people would prefer us not to have these types of discussions, up to the Prime Minister, across to the Christian Council, down to some people who support parties and other institutions. But the challenge with all of what they think is that we're not going to stop. So, you got to keep the olive oil, anoint yourself, make sure you keep yourself safe. The other reason I'm standing is because I run into people every day who watch Citizens Review, and they are of the impression that because I sit behind a desk, that I am short, and that is far from the truth. So I'm standing here so you can get an idea. You see, my wingspan long, my legs go all the way down, so you can get an idea of the size of fella that I am. I'm not very small. I'm actually 6'4", and I lost a lot of weight recently, as most of you know who watched the show. I subscribe to products called Symmetry. And Symmetry, I think we have information from Miss Cambridge. I don't know if George could pull that up. Boom. Jesus, look at that. That's quick, eh? George really on it. Symmetry is the product that I use. I take it every single day, and it's changed my life completely. I'm 10 times healthier as a person. I have energy for days. I run, exercise, stay in shape. You see, I ain't got no belly, flat, slim, in shape. And before I started using Symmetry, which was almost 1 year and 3 months ago, I was about 60 pounds heavier. And you could imagine for a young fella like me, I ain't in business with that kind of weight on me. So I got the weight off. I feel good, feel energized. Symmetry helped save my life. And so call Miss Cambridge if you want some of the products. I promote the products because I think the products have helped me to make major changes. I don't get into all them slim this and get fit that and all of that. I talk about health. Now my diet is changed. I eat mostly greens and meat. I got rid of carbohydrates, not carbohydrates, but starches in my diet. For those of you who have sinus problems, have a look at that as an issue, not just dairy products, but also starch. If you want an example, take a piece of fresh bread and put it in your mouth. Start chewing it and add water. And what do you end up with? That's the mucus right in your mouth. That's a gruesome scene, but what I'm trying to get across to you is starch creates mucus. Same thing with potatoes. Mashed potatoes, you whip it up, it's mucus. So when it processes through your body, it doesn't necessarily turn out that well for those of us with sinus. So I don't eat starch anymore as much. I slip up yesterday at the Guyana Bahamas Association. They had some cook-up rice and some fried rice and some bun. So I had me some bun. But I also want to congratulate, and I'm supposed to have the picture, but I don't have the picture, so we'll just talk about it. I want to congratulate the Guyana Bahamas Association for hosting their athletes from Guyana yesterday at C.I. Gibson. They had a whole ceremony for them, and it to me, it felt like community. And I can't, Mr. Douglas, just tell me the theme for Carifta, but I can't remember it. What's the theme for Carifta? Give me the theme.
Celebrating Caribbean unity.
Celebrating Caribbean unity. And when I went to the ceremony, they asked me to speak. They gave the tokens of appreciation to the kids, did a collection, gave the kids some support as they go back home to train. So all a very loving and supportive environment. That kind of stuff you like to see. You know, you like to see our Caribbean community work together. People from Guyana supporting the children from Guyana. And Guyana won, I think it's the most medals that Guyana's ever won at Carifta, which is 6 medals. And they only had 6 athletes. Some of the athletes double medaled. But that's impressive because per capita, Guyana win Carifta. If you have 6 athletes and 6 medals, everybody get a medal with 2 golds, I believe it is. That's that they perform a lot better than most people per capita. Now you have to remember when we go to the Olympics, we make that per capita argument. Only 350,000 us, they got 4 gold and this and that. Grenada has the best one. They have only a few, maybe 107,000 people, and they got Karani James with 1 gold. Anyway, the Carifta Games are wonderful. I enjoyed myself. I felt a spirit of patriotic happiness as I sat in the stands and saw all the Bahamian flags and the Jamaican flags and the Haitian flags, Guyanese flags, Trinidadian, Bajan, all of the different flags, St. Lucia, St. Kitts and Nevis, Martinique, where the games will be hosted next year. So I just wanted to harp on the fact that Caribbean unity is important. You look at the situations in Cyprus, in Greece, in Spain, you look at the challenges in North Korea and South Korea, and you come to understand with a globalized world that the Caribbean will at some point have to look at operating as a unit in order to really advance any sort of progress for the unit and the region itself. So those are things that we need to look at as Caribbean people. Bahamians particularly need to stop being so xenophobic and stop being so resistant of integration with fellow Caribbean brothers and sisters. When I go to Trinidad, for example, I look up in immigration and they have a line for CARICOM citizens and then they have a line for everybody else. So when I'm in Trinidad, I'm not a Bahamian, I'm a CARICOM citizen. And that felt good. I enjoyed that feeling when I went to Trinidad and I realized that I don't get segregate Trinidadians only. No. CARICOM citizens, Bahamians, Jamaicans, anybody in the CARICOM region, and then foreigners. So the distinction, the line of who is a foreigner is very different when you consider the fact that the Caribbean is in fact a community. So thank God for Carifta. The gentleman that brought about Carifta, I can't remember his name, but he gave Shawnee Miller, who I absolutely positively adore, a award. What's his name? Austin Seeley. That's his name. Austin Seeley. Mr. Douglas is in studio today. He is very much so assisting. He's a good guy and he's teacher at C.I. Gibson, observing how we do citizens review. And that's another thing. I want to invite people, if you want to see what we do here in studio, to come. Call JCN, schedule, or call me, send me an email and put up my information. Send me an email, citizensreviewtv@gmail.com. Tweet me, Facebook me. You can come and watch as we produce the show in studio and we do what it is that we do so that you can enjoy the show at home, but also have had the experience of seeing in studio how this show works. You'll get to meet Mark, you'll meet George, our producers, Mark, the cameraman, and also a producer. You meet David Hayes, who is the producer of Citizens Review. Everybody here, the team, the family of Citizens Review. So please call us, let us know, and you feel free to come and watch the show. This is going to be a very simple show. And the reason why it's going to be simple is I just want to deal with the concept of our plantation economy. Eric Williams, the former Prime Minister of Trinidad, outlines this so beautifully in his book, Capitalism and Slavery. The plantation economy is an economy very similar to ours, where you see concepts like tourism advanced, where the average Bahamian is the worker in the equation, and then they are owners of said plantation, our economy. And I want to go into that. I want to show a plantation owner, and then I want to show the obvious Uncle Tom, so that you could understand our predicament as Negroes on a plantation. We'll get to that. I wanted to show you the clip now, but I talk all that unity stuff, and I want to keep that clean. So we'll come back from this break. I can stand up this whole show so you can see it all. You can see my hands big. See this big hand? I can't be no short man. I want to focus on us as Bahamians and people who live in the Bahamas and what our predicament actually is. So we'll come back to that after this break. We'll see you in a minute. And welcome back to Citizens Review. Now, to our topic, the plantation economy in the Bahamas. The reason why I brought this topic forward is because I saw something yesterday. And let me preface this, because there is a movement of people in the Bahamas that not only get offended by Citizens Review, and you will notice that I deal with those who get offended more, because they are Bahamians as well, and so I would like for everyone to feel like they could be a part of this discussion. So I'm trying my best to be more inclusive, more available to everyone's different side of the ideas that we talk about. And obviously I'm already inclusive and available, but people say that my language make people feel like they cannot express themselves, or like I have already closed my mind to the issue. Now, I argue that the Bahamas is an anti-intellectual environment. So, for example, if a professor at a college anywhere in the first world, as my example, were to write a book arguing something, no other scholars would feel like they wrote that book in isolation of any other scholar's idea. They would simply be advancing their idea. And so you, as a fellow scholar, would be responsible for advancing your idea. And so you bring that down to the Bahamas, and a simple scope of things. If I, for example, was on Facebook the other day and a gentleman said, "Do you work in an office setting?" And I said, "Well, why?" He said, "Well, because I work for the bank and I am trying to sell some loans. So if you know people in your office setting, trying to drum up some business." And I said, "Well, sir, my only challenge with that is I believe banks in the Bahamas are loan sharks. They get up beyond 15% regularly, sometimes up to 20%, 18% standard on credit cards, which I think is rather ridiculous. They also over-leverage the banks. So the Bahamas Financial Services Board would tell you things like the banks in the Bahamas are leveraged up to 202%, whereas in the countries that are their home countries, they can't even be leveraged more than 45%, because then it becomes illegal. So I have a challenge with the banks in the Bahamas. I think they're loan sharks. I think they sell products that they think go quickly and entrap customers to continue to having to pay them. So he said, "Oh, well, that's your opinion." And I said, "Well, naturally, I mean, I would have typed it to you on Facebook, so it doesn't make sense for you to identify to me that it is my opinion. I'm aware of that. What I would have said it for is that you work to the bank. So it would be wise for you to either counter my argument with an argument, or agree, or defend what you're saying, fight it, attack what I have said. But apparently in the Bahamas it is commonplace to say things like, well, everybody is due to their opinion. These things are understood. You don't have to say that. We get that. We live in a democracy. However challenged, we grew up in an era where Mr. Pinling would have thought that ZNS was his personal PA system and Mr. Ingram and Mr. Christie. So I understand that people have to establish that it is your opinion. Okay, but once we would have passed that, you then have to argue with facts. You have to, an argument as a sophisticated term, not a row. A row, a colloquial term, would be shouting at each other. Argument as a sophisticated term, as in you pose a position and you are willing to defend said position. And in intellectual societies, this flows very smoothly. In anti-intellectual societies, it gets personal. So you go from the fact that it's your opinion to you think you're smarter than everybody, which is a very silly approach to things. You have to make your argument as opposed to focusing on the person that you're talking to. Because in argumentation, a immediate flaw of making an argument is character assassination, dealing with the person as opposed to dealing with the issue. And so I would oblige Bahamians to, when you watch Citizens Review, take yourself out of our usual anti-intellectual environment and engage yourself into an environment of argumentation in a sophisticated sense, not shouting and rowing, and intellectualism, where you actually feel like if we say it's a plantation economy because Bahamians are the workers and there are people that own the plantation, there would have to be someone that refutes that with an argument as opposed to saying, I don't think so, you know. So on to what I was saying. In my effort to be more inclusive, I'm trying to present facts. I want you to see the information as it was shown to me. Make your own determination and then proceed with argumentation from there. So I would have been sitting at my house and watching the news, which I try not to do too often in the Bahamas because it's sad. Not only is it depressing, because the crime beat is so very difficult to absorb, but it's also sad, the quality of news, you know, where the reporters and or the journalists in this country believe that it is okay to simply go out, put a mic in someone's face, take said mic back, cut what that person would have said, present it, read it, and play it. And that is journalism. And I don't remember that being journalism when I went to school. I did not study journalism, I will admit that. But the slowest fella in the world, I observed some journalism. And we got plenty American, Arab, European channels where they do a bit of real journalism, and it makes it challenging to watch news in the Bahamas. Anyway, my point is, I would have seen our Prime Minister, Perry Christie, say some things that I think, one, defines him as an Uncle Tom, two, lays out our predicament as a country, three, makes clear that we have no representation, four, makes even more clear that what was told to us on rally stages was absolutely false in terms of its assertion as fact materialized into nothing. And so I want you to listen to this clip. I don't want to preface it too much, although I don't preface it as much as you possibly can. I want you to listen to this clip and determine for yourself what may be the challenges in this clip. Now, I will say this before I get into this. Number one, this is a very sensitive issue. It is a very sensitive issue because it deals with a group of people in this country that have not been protected, addressed, or represented in the parliament, in the laws, in policy, nowhere. Very sensitive issue. Also, it is sensitive because it is personal to the Prime Minister. I will disclose that up front. But one would assume that that personal nature would have yielded results. Perhaps not. That is not for me to judge. What I am here to point out is that as Bahamians, what we are about to see presents a great challenge to our progress as people on a plantation. But it does identify for us that we are in fact on a plantation and within a plantation economy. And then later in this show, I will show you a clip from one of the owners of the plantation as the Uncle Toms of the day were to laugh at the joke of the owner. I will show you that later. Let's have a look at Mr. Christie.
Father of an autistic child, Prime Minister Perry Christie says he strongly supports the efforts displayed by REACH to educate the public about autism and is now in a position to assist the organization with the resources it needs to move ahead.
All of you work to support REACH. Sometimes it's thankless, you feel you're not reaching the people you should reach. But why don't you find a way to come and sit down with me and persuade me to be prejudiced in your favor? Look at what I give the Athletic Association for Carifta. Ask me how much I gave them as Prime Minister. Then say, just come and give me 1/10 of that. Think if we could work together. I'm sure we could lean on Mr. Dinkel to help us lead a charge to put up some kind of facility for our kids. Let's start by your coming to me and saying, give me the land.
President of REACH, Mario Carey, who is also the father of an autistic child, says while it's expensive to raise a child with autism here in the Bahamas, he's pleased that parents of autistic children are getting more involved in the program.
I hope that, and see, I played Perry so that you could listen to him yourself. I played him so you could hear him yourself. Where do you even start? There are so many challenges in what he would have said. And the first thing we should do is say, okay, if you watched that and you thought that everything was fine with that, then you need to acknowledge within yourself that you may or may not be relevant to what is in the best interest of the country. Let me say that again. If you heard what Mr. Christie would have said, and you thought that there were no issues with that, you may not be so helpful in moving the country forward, unless you start to rethink some things. Mr. Christie said that the group that deals with autism, REACH, President Mario Carey, should try come talk to him. Make him convinced that they have something to say. Convince him to be prejudiced to their cause. Listen carefully. He said, oh, why don't you look at what I would have done for the Athletics Association? As Prime Minister, me, Mr. Perry Gladstone Christie, Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Bahamas, Minister of Finance. You know, he continues to remind us of that as if he is not convinced. Oh, look at what I would have done for them. Why don't you come beg me? That's what I kept hearing. I had beg. Come. I have access. You want access with the autistic children. Why don't you all come ask me if I could help you? Well, why you know don't beg me, man? I'll help you if you beg me. But this would have been the same Perry Christie that was on the PLP stage campaigning about helping people with disabilities, using his very own autistic son on the campaign stage as a political ploy, obviously. I will classify that for you. Your son is autistic. You promised the country on a political stage, and anybody could go pull the footage, that you will help children with disabilities because they are disadvantaged and not protected in our country. But then you come to the REACH organization, Autism in Children, which is particular to your disabled child, that you paraded around the country, and you say, beg me and convince me to help your cause. I do not think, Bahamians, that I am crazy. I saw that. I remember the campaign promise. The election, although it may feel like it was 5 years ago, was only, 10 months ago? Mr. Christie promised. And then yesterday in my conversations with a friend, as I was mulling over this topic, the friend brought to my attention that there are some other children with disabilities that need some protection. The AIDS Foundation is currently fighting for foster home parents in the Bahamas who assist children to accept children that may be HIV positive. Because the foster home parents are rejecting these children on the grounds that they got AIDS. But there is no Disabilities Act in the Bahamas, Mr. Christie, head of the legislature and head of the executive. And I ain't talking about the Speaker, the House head of the legislature. I mean the man who controls the agenda and owns the majority vote. There is no Disabilities Act. Mr. Christie would have campaigned on a Disabilities Act while holding his disabled son in tow. And Mr. Christie obviously misrepresented his intentions. This, ladies and gentlemen, is an Uncle Tom. That is the classic classification of Uncle Tom. He is closer to the actual owners of the economy, the foreigners who are not Bahamian that own our economy, and he is closer to the pot. And he will extend you privilege out of the pot if you just ask and beg and bring yourself prostrate forward to him, and he will provide. Oh, great Perry Christie. I think we have hit a critical point, Bahamians. We are at the point where our Prime Minister, even in issues most personal to him, is asking us to beg and plead for his assistance. I want to play that clip again before I go to break so that you could hear it again and scrutinize it again, because you need to know the predicament we are in. You need to understand when a Randall Fox was preaching and pressing for righteousness and was preaching and pressing for rights of laborers, that the man was on to something. We can talk about that after this break. I won't play that clip again. You need to see the Uncle Tom, the man who does not provide us any representation, let alone his own child, who cares not about disabled children, who obviously needs us to, as he is Prime Minister, persuade him to do his job, of which he has a Ministry of Youth, a Ministry of Health, and a Ministry of Education. All three of which have relevant portfolios when it comes to disabled people and young disabled people. He has no interest. He needs to be persuaded. He needs us to come tell him that there is a challenge with autistic children in the Bahamas, as if he is unaware. He either has lost his mind or he is uninterested. Either way, listen to the clip again and see if it's me or see if you hear something.
All of you work to support REACH. Sometimes it's thankless, you feel you're not reaching the people you should reach. But why don't you find a way to come and sit down with me and persuade me to be prejudiced in your favor? Look at what I give the Athletic Association for Carifta. Ask me how much I gave them as Prime Minister. Then say, just come and give me 1/10 of that. Think if we could work together. I'm sure we could lean on Mr. Dinkle to help us lead a charge to put up some kind of facility for our kids. Let's start by your coming to me saying, give me the land.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. I hope you had time during the commercial break to have a look at exactly what I think, and I am showing, I think, is our predicament here in the country. Before I get into what we're going to talk about, I want to thank Bijou Turner for sponsoring Citizens Review. Their store is located downtown. Please go and support. They decided to sponsor. I appreciate that they have. We have some good, strong sponsors now that we've lost the big giant who attempts to reign their tyranny over the market and control what is said. So we're back. We're strong. Thank you very much to Bijou Turner. We also, I'm told that Sire's in Freeport is interested in sponsoring. Thank you very much, Sire. And also Bamboo Shack here in Nassau and Sammy's. So good, strong Bahamian businesses stepping in to assist. So we'll see. I don't think everybody is sponsored yet, but I appreciate any suggestions of help. And anyone else who is out there that wants to donate to the show, please call JCN or call myself. Put up the information. You can reach me on Facebook, Twitter. I encourage you, if you have questions about what's going on with the show, ask, send me a message, question me, I will respond. I try to answer every single message I get on Facebook, and I get lots of them every day, emails, everything. So reach me on Facebook, let's talk. I'll add you as a friend and we can chat. But yes, I read a book, 2 books, that made my predicament in the Bahamas very clear to me. One was Capitalism and Slavery, Eric Williams. The other one was Randall Fox. Randall Fox's book is I mean, he just covers absolutely every area that one ought to pay attention to in the Bahamas. And one of the things as an author and as a leader that Randall Fox does is he focuses in on something that I think we miss as Bahamians constantly. And I can bring the argument all around for you, because I don't call Perry Uncle Tom, and I now have to justify why that is. Remember, we are in the intellectual zone. We are in a place where argumentation is sophisticated. We don't say things like it's your opinion. We defend our opinions, understanding that because we would have said it, it is in fact our opinion. We don't call people, think they're smart. You present your argument. So, Randall Fox would have been on to something when he cornered this market on labor and the importance of labor. I think, and I may be wrong, but I think that Randall Fox, following the taxicab union strike, the general strike, Burma Road, challenges with the treatment of laborers in this country, gathered as a fellow parliamentarian with Stafford Sands, he gathered that there was an assumed position for the Negro in our society. He gathered, I think, that our position was increasingly clear as the labor. Now, I do not think that Randall Fox supported the fact that that was our position. I think he would have preferred for Bahamians to be empowered in their country. I think it was clear in his books that that was his position. But he stopped at that issue and started to harp on it and talk about the importance of treatment of laborers, the importance of labor organizing, Labor Unite or Perish, the title of one of his books. And so when you look at where Sir Randall's argument sat about the protection of labor, and when you look at the makeup of our economy, you start to realize very quickly that the most important figure in this century in the Bahamas is Randall Fox. Here's why. Tourism is said to be our #1 industry. I do this every school I go to. I try to get the word across because keep lying to these children and telling them tourism is our #1 industry. #1 industry as categorized by what? The fact that it is the #1 revenue generator in the country, boosts our GDP. Here's the challenge with that. I am asking about the GDP and the #1 industry for Bahamians. And so if I'm talking about Bahamians, I need you to tell me what Bahamians own and or control in said #1 industry. And that's when we start to reduce it to what is actually happening. So where do Bahamians fit in our industries? And I can tie this all back to Perry Christie and play you one clip of one of the plantation owners. The plantation I happen to come from, Grand Bahama, which is the best organized plantation in the Bahamas, by the way. Atlantis is a joke. Grand Bahama is a plantation. That clear. And they got the big house with the big colonial columns as the Port Authority office. So we have tourism. But you cannot name for me any Bahamians that are significant owners of the tourism product. You can't tell me anyone. Because in order to be a significant owner in the tourism product, you would either have to be a mega hotel owner or a cruise ship owner. The challenge with that is they both have casinos and it is illegal for us to own casinos. So you cannot be mega hotel owner or casino owner with a cruise ship because it's illegal for you. In fact, we sat here and had a whole blessed referendum on whether Bahamians should have rights in their own country. And because the Prime Minister tried to make it a political issue and tried to fool us and bamboozle us, we voted no. I firmly believe Bahamians rejected that, not on the basis of the question, but on the basis that we are tired of being played for political ploys. So our position in tourism is labor. We are cheap laborers. The average person in tourism probably makes $400 a week. If you're lucky, I know plenty of people would take $400 a week right now. That's our tourism industry. We are laborers in that industry. You cannot sit in your home in the Bahamas and name for me a Bahamian that owns a significant stake in the tourism industry? And a significant stake does not mean a 20-room hotel. That is not significant. Significant would mean that you have a corner on 10% of the market or something, you know. Got a little movement going on there. Sol Coast now has a corner on the market. Sarkis is Merlion will have a corner on the market. Royal Caribbean Tours, Cruises has a corner on the market. But no Bahamian. 3 million of the tourists come from the cruise ships, 2 million land at the airport. Now there's foreign run. Canadians, no Bahamian. I don't care if you make me the top laborer, we are laborers. I don't care if you make me the chief nigger on the plantation, I exist on a plantation that is not mine. So even if I am the senior vice president amongst the 20 million senior vice presidents they have at Atlantis, I am a top nigger on a plantation of Negroes. Not necessarily of lighter hue. That rule does no longer apply, apparently. And so you go to banking and finance. And then you ask Dr. John Rogers if he could get a banking license, and he'll tell you in his whole book, no. And then you ask Craig Flowers if he could get a banking license, and he'll tell you no. And then you inquire as to whether you could open an account at a private bank. And Wendy Craig at the Central Bank, unless you could answer every question she got to ask you about your grandchildren, their arm, their leg, if they have any birthmarks, and if their skin is soft, she can tell you no. And then you come to realize that there is only one Bahamian company, Sentinel Bank, Ansbacher, Bahamas, that has stake in private banking. And of the second largest industry, only one. And so then you start to say, what do we do in financial services? Perhaps we are the labor again. We are better paid labor. So number one industry, cheap labor. Number two industry, mid-wage labor. You could buy a Mercedes if you work in the bank. You could wear nice clothes and you could dress up. But you're still a laborer. Again, back to Randall Fox, who was on to something, because his chief and primal goal in his movement was the protection of labor. So if Stafford Sands is significant in our history for the introduction of the new plantation economy, the tourism model that factored in foreign ownership and not Bahamian, then Randall Fox is the savior of the time who focused on where we would fit in, which is in labor. He wanted laborers empowered, protected, and accommodated in the model. And we still aren't for the most part. Then you look at the third largest industry, which is construction and development, and you say to yourself, well, there are Bahamians who own construction companies. Yes, we have arrived in one of these industries, but then you have to remember the three largest contracts given out in the Bahamas in the last 10 years. Number one, Bahama, Chinese construction company. As far as I know, $1.8 billion. Number two, NAD, the airport, $500 million, Canadian company. And I've been to Canada, and Air Canada ain't the most efficient service in the world, and airports in Canada ain't the smoothest. But somehow they build an airport for us. Number three, largest contract, Jose Cartellone, South American company, the roads, $200 and something million, 500 and something million Canadian, 1.7 billion Chinese. And so then you ask yourself, what do we do again? And then our labor model is corrupt because Bahama are getting ready to tell us we got to hire, well, they done tell us we got to hire 5,000 Chinese to build the thing. So we can't even be the labor in the Bahama model. And then they go further than that to tell us that we ain't got no training. We've been in the tourism business for 60 years, year round. But we ain't got no training. Ain't nobody here know what to do. And so we're going to have to bring in some people from South America. And last time, Finland let them bring in some Moroccans and all kind of stuff. And you know, we'd train the Bahamians eventually. You know, just like Atlantis, who got all them senior people and directors and all of that. But Bahamians certainly, obviously can't figure out how to do those jobs. You know, they got people in here from all over America that we can't be trained in those areas. Something wrong with us. We can't even be the labor good, is what they tell us. And our politicians, our Uncle Toms, per se. You watch Django Unchained. You saw Samuel Jackson's role in Django to protect the master. You saw when Mr. Christie did the interview and say, oh, Phil Ruffin is my boy. And Phil Ruffin say, yeah, Perry is my boy. You saw it. It's clear. I play it. You saw it. Then you saw Mr. Christie tell us, beg him and he may help us. Even though his son autistic. He got money, man. His autistic son don't need no help from no government. He's straight. Y'all need autistic help for your children. So beg him. He's the Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, Perry Gladstone Christie. And he may help you if you be good. You convince him to be prejudiced to your cause. And you could see what he did for the other people. Oh, look at what I did, me and my greatness for these other people. Why, I'm a good man. I'm a good leader. I think Mr. Christie, when he went into the ballot box, saw his name on the ballot, assuming that it was his name. He don't vote in Centerville, but this is just some imagery. Saw his name on the ballot and scribbled the word king in front of it and said Elizabeth Cousin, and then put, you put the little thing like that and add Gladstone between Perry and Christie and said, oh, okay, that's me now, and marked X. Because I can't declare him crazy because I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but something missing between the man who stood on the stage and said, I will fight for children with disabilities. I will fight to make sure that children like mine are protected. I will make sure that we forward their cause and protect our children. That cannot be the man who said, oh, come to me and beg me, and I will indulge you. I give you some land, help you out. That cannot be the same leader. And am I questioning Mr. Christie's personal commitment to his child? No. No. Because my name ain't Christie and I don't know him like that. What I am questioning is, if his own child is not protected and he is the man that controls the law in the parliament, then what I am asking is, what am I to expect from my children? And the answer has to be not much. Further than that, one, as a Bahamian, has to look at our country with a view, like Christie said, with a view towards changing it. And when you realize that this is your predicament, you have to take a second look and say, we have a serious challenge. Don't dismiss Aaron Ferguson and say it's him making noise. Listen to the man yourself. We can play that clip one more time, and then I can let you listen to the clip from Jack Haywood at the funeral of Edward St. George as Christie and Ingram look on and laugh at us laborers as he makes a joke about stuffing the pockets of the Uncle Tom. So let's play the clip with Perry Christie one more time so people could see what he said.
All of you work to support REACH. Sometimes it's thankless, you feel you're not reaching the people you should reach. But why don't you find a way to come and sit down with me and persuade me to be prejudiced in your favor? Look at what I give the Athletic Association for Carifta. Ask me how much I gave them as Prime Minister. Then say, just come and give me 1/10 of that. Think if we could work together. I'm sure we could lean on Mr. Dinkle to help us lead a charge to put up some kind of facility for our kids. Let's start by your coming to me saying, give me the land.
You heard it yourself. Analyze it yourself. Think about it yourself. Discuss it yourselves. And consider the challenges that what he has said and what he has done with that statement presents to us as Bahamians. We cannot continue to live like this. We cannot continue to be workers on a plantation with no ownership. We cannot continue to empower Uncle Toms who will not protect our interest. And as you will see with Jack Haywood coming up right now, the owners of that economy that we think that we have, the owners of tourism, banking, and construction and development have what they call both sides covered. They have the PLP and the F&M in their coffers. They cover them. And if you don't understand what covering means, it means that they're making sure doing favors for them to keep the top niggas happy as they oppress the bottom niggas. I say these terms because they are still relevant. There is nothing that has changed. And if you read Eric Williams' book, he makes the argument very clear that nothing has changed. The only thing is that we don't call it slavery no more. And if you read Randall Falk's book, you will understand the predicament of laborers in an economy such as this, and how he attempted with his life to restore righteousness and to protect laborers. We are but dust, and to dust we shall return. So you might as well say what you got to say before you're dead. Listen to Jack Haywood. Let your children listen to this. Pay attention to what they say and review it for yourself. You tell me what you think about it. I go on, I finish for this week. Y'all have a nice week.
Edward was probably one of the most talented politicians this country's ever seen. Far, far better equipped and far, far superior to a lot of the people assembled here today. With no disrespect, Prime Minister. I remember when an election was called and I was in London and I phoned him and I said, so they've called an election? He said, yes. I said, who's going to win? And he said, we are. And I said, what do you mean? He said, relax, old cock. I've got both sides covered.